Facebook user says, hey, Jason, do you have any networking or connections with companies that you recommend students who have taken your courses to get their foot in the door? This is one of the biggest struggles that we have and that we're working to help people figure out how to get their foot in the door, because there is this cybersecurity skills gap that we always talk about. And the problem is a lot of employers don't want to invest in people. They want people who are ready to go and be useful day one. When we start having a big shortage of people, there are companies that will take in people and train them up. I know one, for example, is Deloitte. They don't do this with a ton of people, but they do have a program where they do take in 50 or 100 people a year, and they take them with less experience, but they have the right either degrees or certifications to give them an opportunity. They're one of the ones I know off the top of my head because I have several friends who work there that are always looking to hire. But even my friends who are there, when they ask, hey, I got a new job, they're always saying, I'm looking for somebody with 5 years of experience. I'm looking for somebody with 10 years of experience. I'm looking for somebody who has a TS clearance or a secret clearance because it's a government position. And even for my brand new students who may be great and could do the job, they're not going to look at them because they don't have enough experience yet. So that is the biggest challenge. I've worked at other colleges and places like that did have programs like that, and it's something we would love to do. The big challenge for us is the number of students we get certified is really high. And so being able to place that number of students in new jobs is really difficult. The other thing I would say is depending on who you are, but if you happen to be somebody who's a minority, if you are a person of color, if you are LGBT, or any of the disenfranchised marginal groups, a lot of companies are trying to break down the barriers because most people in cybersecurity, I will say, as of 10 years ago, 95% of the industry looked like me, middle-aged white guys, right? It's now gotten better. I worked with an organization called Women's Cyber Jitsu. And so if you happen to be a woman, I would definitely look them up. They're in the DC, Baltimore area. And they do a lot of work with helping people get jobs and helping you work your resumes and what certifications you need to get those jobs. They specifically work with women, though. And they were trying to solve the issue that when I started working with them back in 2013, 10 years ago, only 9% of our population in cybersecurity was female. There was only 9% were women. So I used to get crap in my courses from people who go, hey, every time you give an example, you say Joe or Tom or John. How come it's never Mary or Susie? And I'm like, actually, I was just thinking back to my real world experience, and it was Jeremy who did it, right? Or John who did it, because 9 out of 10 of my coworkers were men. And so I worked with this organization to try to help get more women in the field. And Women's Cyber Jitsu, JITSU is how that's spelled. They're a great organization and they do some work in that area as well. And if you're involved with one of those organizations, they will try to help get you in through some of the diversity programs that can help get you a job if you meet one of those categories. If you are the standard middle-aged white guy, that's not going to apply to you. I'm sorry. But it is one of the things that in our industry, we've been trying to get more diversity. And at this point, we are now, last number I saw, women made up about 18%. So in the last 10 years, we've gone from 9 to 18%. Still a very underrepresented area, which is why the Women's Cyber Jitsu does a lot of work in that area. Another organization I've worked with is known as Blacks in Tech, BIT, and they are out of Atlanta, Georgia, and they focus on African-American and Black folks, trying to get them jobs in technology and cybersecurity. So if you fall in that category, definitely look at them. They can try to help you with that as well. And then the other thing I would say is if you're a diversity person, another great organization to look at is SANS, SANS.org. They are a very expensive training organization, but they also have really good connections to get people into jobs once they get certified. Normally, their courses are about $8,000 a course for a certification. They are stupid expensive, and I do not recommend paying for them yourself. But if you can get into their program, they have a diversity program that is a 3-month program. They will put you through, it's either 3 or 5 of their certifications and help you with job placement after. And it's a free program if you get accepted, but it is a 40-hour-a-week commitment for 3 months. That's another good way to get your foot in the door because they have those connections to help get you right into the jobs. So long answer to your question is I don't have anybody like that we're in a direct pipeline with yet. When I worked with colleges before, we did have some organizations that were like that, where once they went through our program for a year and they got their A+, Net+, Security+, and CCNA, which was the 4 certs we did through that year-long program, they then had a job waiting for them, making $50,000 to $60,000 a year that they were able to walk right into as long as they passed the interview. And it was just a feeder program for that organization. The other place I would look at is if you're here in the US, talk to your community college. A lot of community colleges work with local employers to create these programs where you may go through a certain certification path with them and then be offered a job because you've completed that path. And that's how the college that I worked with in Baltimore, in the Baltimore Anne Arundel County area, it was called Arundel Community College. They had that program with 3 different people, one in Annapolis, one in Baltimore, and one down in DC. And the students would get an interview with those 3 employers, and 90% of our students got hired by those 3 employers at the end of the program because we were training the program to what those employers needed, not just the certifications, but what they were actually going to do on the job. And the jobs they were putting them in was a junior cybersecurity analyst job, which once they've done that for a year, they're now in the industry and they've got experience. Everybody wanted them. And most of those students within 3 or 4 years were making $100,000 a year because they were able to jump into the cybersecurity realm. But it is the hardest thing, is getting that first job. Once you get that first job, it gets a lot easier. I know there are a lot of different answers out there.
So the biggest thing that I know that I tell a lot of people that's like getting out of the military and transition and stuff like that is LinkedIn. It's basically just a network of professionals. Go on LinkedIn, build your profile. Because Jason said, all the jobs out there, even though they're labeled entry level, you got to have 3 years of experience. Well, how do I get that 3 years of experience? Who's going to give me that chance? You make connections, there's groups out there, and then you basically find a mentor to help you. And then once you find that mentor to help you, or a company is willing to take a chance on you because they saw your profile on LinkedIn, that'll help get your foot in the door, as well as documenting the things that you do for self-study. You document it, you create a website on AWS and you make a detailed blog of how you did it, and you can showcase this is your work, you did it, you show that you did that work. And that's another way to get experience to help break down that door to get into a company.
One of my friends, he runs a company called Game Dev HQ, gamedevhq.com, and it's for people who want to become programmers for video games. And he teaches Unity and AR and XR and all that kind of fun stuff. And one of the things that they do in his program, it's a very high-touch program. It's a year long. It's almost like a replacement for college. And they go through and teach you all of the stuff you need to be a programmer and be a game developer. In addition to that, though, they actually make them write blog articles every week and post it on places like Medium and LinkedIn. And the reason they do that is because by the time the people hit their 3rd or 4th month in the program, they already have 10 or 12 of these articles out there. And employers are starting to see those. They go, oh, hey, Jason, you look like you actually know something about Unity. I'm looking to hire. And most of the people in his program are getting hired before they even hit the end of the year program, because they're doing this and it's putting a spotlight on them as experts in the field, even though they've just started writing these articles. So that's another thing I've seen people do. Get involved in open source projects, do blogging, you can make YouTube videos, you could do LinkedIn posts, Medium posts, things like that. Those are all things that get your name out there, because I will tell you as an employer, if I'm looking at you and you're across the table from me as we're doing an interview, and you can say, yeah, I've got my certs, but I've also been involved in the industry because I'm volunteering here, or I'm doing this here, and I've done this here. And I know I don't have any professional experience yet, but I'm really passionate about this, and here's all the things I've done. And this goes back to earlier, we talked about AWS and creating your own lab. If you're trying to get a job as a cybersecurity analyst or a pen tester, build a lab in AWS. And then when I'm interviewing you, you could say, yes, I built this lab out. I did the attacks. I then was running Wireshark and I saw the attack and I saw what it looked like. And I did Nmap scans and I found the vulnerabilities and I used Metasploit to break into the vulnerabilities. And all that stuff is things that translate directly into the job you're applying for. And it's a way to show experience without ever having that job on your resume. So that's another thing you can do to try to break down some of those job barriers, because that is really the hardest thing, is getting that first job. Once you get that first one, the world really does open up. It's just really hard to get that